A copy will be placed on the Municipal Budget Office website. So today we have a brief presentation about the city's budget, as well as a couple informative videos that we have for you. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll have plenty of time to answer your questions about the city's budget or the city's finances in general. Okay, so today's topics, we have an overview of municipal budgeting. So we have, as I mentioned, we have a video to talk about that. Then we're going to have a brief review of the city's two budgets, the operating budget and the capital budget. We're going to talk about how we do long and short term planning for the city. We'll go over how we gather community input, like in forums like we have today. And then we're going to talk about the relationship between the community input and how council prioritizes in the budget process. With that, we have our first video.
The city of Tempe is a vibrant, energetic, and forward-thinking place, attracting millions of people who live, work, play, and learn here. What we do in Tempe is different than in any other city. The programs and services we offer really do make waves in the desert. But none of it is possible without a balanced budget that reflects Tempe's diverse community. A city budget provides a blueprint for how your tax dollars are going to be spent. It shows how much revenue the city is expecting to take in and how much money is expected to go out. There are actually two annual budgets, one for operating and one for capital projects. The operating budget is for routine and daily services such as police and fire, keeping the library open, park maintenance, recreation programs, and solid waste collection, to name a few. The capital budget is a plan for large infrastructure projects. It projects the budget over the next 5 years. Some examples of capital projects are Tempe streetcar, park improvements like playground equipment, new buildings, and bike lane or road improvements. So where does the money come from for all these projects and services? There are a few different sources. One is property taxes collected from Tempe property owners. Another is sales tax, which is collected anytime you make a purchase in Tempe. City revenue also comes from construction projects, federal and state partnerships, as well as service fees. Some city services, including solid waste collections and water utilities, charge user fees to collect revenue. These are called enterprise funds, and that means the city must collect enough revenue from users to cover the costs of providing those services. So how does the Tempe City Council decide what projects and services to fund? The city has identified 5 strategic priorities: safe and secure communities, strong community connections, quality of life, sustainable growth, and financial stability and vitality. These priorities have several goals attached to them. Every project, every service need is weighed against those goals to help the council make its budget decisions. The city tracks its progress towards these goals with a comprehensive data dashboard that shows all of the work that's being done. And of course, Tempe residents are the most important part of the process. The city collects resident input from online surveys, pop-up events, city council meetings, and public forums. This input helps the council understand how the community wants its money spent. As you can see, there's a lot that goes into the city budget process, but the outcome is worth the effort. A balanced budget that works for everyone in the Tempe community.
Okay, we just have a couple slides here to highlight what was shown in the video. First of all, why do we budget? Well, probably like at home, you have limited resources, so do we at the city. So prioritization of needs is crucial to the process to ensure that we have sufficient funds or resources to address the needs in the city. The second area would be strategic planning. So we've established measurable standards of service through performance measures, and we allocate resources to meet those standards of service. So a little bit later in the presentation, we're going to talk about those performance measures. And then the third is the statutory requirement. So every city and town in Arizona must adopt an annual budget by state statute. We developed a budget in a public process, as you can see on this slide. So on the left is the capital budget, public meetings, and then on the right side is the operating budget. We are here today, February 16th, with the public forum, and you can see we have quite a few public meeting dates. So you don't need to memorize all these. All these dates are available on the Municipal Budget Office website. We'll give the location of that at the end of the presentation, as well as meeting information. Okay, so just like the video explained, we do have a operating budget. This controls the day-to-day operations of the city. So think refuse pickup, administration programs, services, recreation programs, arts programs, those type of things. So when we're putting the operating budget together, what things do we consider? First of all, we try to align the budget process to the council adopted priorities, which are tied to performance measures. So we want to allocate resources to the most important needs and priorities of the community. We monitor economic trends and indicators. We want to make sure that the city's revenues are sustainable, and we make sound financial decisions in order to maintain existing services and possibly expand our services. And then we look at operational needs throughout the city. We want to ensure that we have enough funding to maintain our existing service levels and increase funding in those areas that are priorities. So this is just a graphical representation of the operating budget revenue. Most of our revenue does come from taxes in the form of local taxes. So when you purchase something at your local Circle K or local store, the city receives a portion of those taxes. The other large chunk here is intergovernmental. So the state of Arizona shares with every city and town a portion of the state's sales income tax and vehicle license tax. And then we have the other categories here, user charges and fines and some other miscellaneous revenue. And then for this year, this is a one-time thing for this fiscal year, we did issue some taxable municipal bonds to repay, to pay the city's unfunded liability with the public safety pension system. And so we just put that in there. That was $343 million. We did that in order to save the city money over the long term with that unfunded liability. So this is just with those bond proceeds put in there. And where does the money go? We are primarily a service organization providing great services to our community. So as you can imagine, personnel costs are a large portion of our expenditures, but then we also supply services, things like fuel, those type of things. And then you can see debt service, contingencies, and a few other miscellaneous. And then this is just that representation with that one time. So the bond proceeds were received and went right out to pay the public safety pension retirement system. And then we have the capital budget. So those are the big ticket items. Think park renovations, maintaining our water and wastewater system, building rehabs, paving streets. That's our capital budget. These are larger type projects, and so we plan for 5 years for those. So it takes time to plan those out, with the first year formally adopted in the budget. And how do we develop the capital budget? The city does maintain asset management plans, and we look at the life cycle condition of assets, and we try to replace those on schedule when they need to be replaced. So that's one side of the equation, how projects come into the capital budget. And then we look on the other side, we have to have available funding to pay for those capital projects. So we look for whether we have cash available or if we need to issue bonds to pay for those projects. So this is the CIP, and as I mentioned, because they are large ticket items, we pay for those over a number of years. So we typically issue bonds, as you can see in the current year. It was over 50% of the funding was by bonds. We do try to utilize cash as we can. So we title that pay as you go for cash funding. We also look for outside revenue. So if there are federal grants or opportunities, we try to take advantage of those. And then this is how things are spent. General purpose is for things like maintaining our buildings, new fire apparatus. Special purpose is primarily in the transit program. So think of multi-use pass, those type of things. Transportation is things, streets, street lights, sidewalks, and then our enterprise is primarily our water and wastewater program. And then in total, this is the city's current adopted budget, 1.25 million, with most of that in the general fund and the capital program, and then we have some of our other funds. So Tom in a few minutes is going to talk about the fund structure of the city. So this is a lot of information. We've tried to summarize this in a document, a user-friendly type document. We try to use graphics and other easy to use terms to explain the city's budget. It's called Budget in Brief. It's only about like a 7 or 8 page document. This is on the Municipal Budget Office website, and we'll give you that, like I said, that website address at the end of the presentation here. And with that, I am going to turn this over to Tom Dunsing, our deputy, one of our deputy city managers, to explain fund structure.
Thanks, Mark. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Tom Dunsing. The city maintains multiple funds, and the funds can really be categorized in 4 different areas. The governmental or the general fund is the fund primarily used to provide governmental services that you're familiar with. That's what we fund our Parks and Rec programs. Our Tempe Fire Medical Rescue is funded out of the general fund. That is the fund where we fund the main part of our governmental services. And that's really the fund where a lot of the discussion takes place. But we also have several other fund types that it's really important for you to understand that we pass budgets in these as well. One being the special revenue and special assessment funds. These funds are legally restricted. An example of that would be our transit fund. The voters passed back in the late 1990s a transit tax. We use that to provide transit services, and that fund is legally restricted. So we budget and account for those services in a special revenue fund. As the video and Mark mentioned, we also have enterprise funds. We run those operations like a business, and the best example there is our water and wastewater utility. We account for that in the enterprise fund. And then finally, we have capital projects and debt service funds. Those really are the funds that we account for our capital improvement program, and where we account for the proceeds in the capital improvement programs, and we repay the amount we borrow to finance our capital improvement programs, and that is the debt service funds. Next slide, Mark. Thank you. So the long-term approach to budgeting, very simply stated, what we have to do is determine how much revenue do we think we will be getting. We make a forecast of the revenues that we will be getting, and what are the expenditures and programs those revenues can support. Budgeting really starts with a multi-year effort. In other words, what does the economy look like over the foreseeable future? And with that, we prepare a long-range forecast. And what you see here is a forecast that we will be presenting to our Tempe City Council on Thursday, February 17th, that we will use this to kick off the budget process. And really what this does, again, is to be able to tell council and the public what the affordability of our programs are. In other words, what do we think the economy is going to do and how much is available to provide the services. Specifically, what we'll look at is fiscal year 22-23. That's the budgeting that we're going through now to kick off next fiscal year to be able to provide the services in 22-23. So we take a long-term approach. We dial it in to fiscal year 22-23 to set the parameters of our upcoming budget. And what this forecast really shows is that we think the economy will remain stable over the foreseeable future. We continually have to be cautious and watch out for things like inflation. Are the costs of things going to go up tremendously? We've seen inflation lately. Or do we think the economy is going to slow down? So back 2 years ago, at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a lot of apprehension on what our revenues were going to be because we did not know what the impact the pandemic was going to be. So this is really the best tool that we have to be able to frame the budget for the upcoming fiscal year 22-23 fiscal year.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, the city utilizes several methods to gather community input and feedback during the budget development process that we then provide to the city council as they determine the budget priorities for the next year. So at the top there, you can see we have a community survey, which is annually, and then we have a business survey that is every other year. And the results of that are provided to council in the fall before we even start the budget process. So they get a sense of the sentiment of the community and the business owners before they start the budget process. We also have public forums, and obviously that's where we are today with this virtual public forum. We also have a survey, which is we call our online Tempe forum. And you can see the address there, tempe.gov/forum. We're going to have a video in a minute that kind of explains that online forum. You can directly email mayor and council through the council communicator at tempe.gov. And then you are welcome to provide comments during city council meetings where we talk about the budget. And all those meeting dates are on the Municipal Budget Office website. So now we'll have a quick video about the online forum.
I'm Mayor Corey Woods. The city of Tempe is an energetic and innovative place, attracting millions of people who live, work, play, and learn here. This is reflected in the programs we offer and the services we provide. In fact, what we do in Tempe is different than in any other city. The programs and services we offer really do make waves of the desert, but none of it is possible without a budget that reflects funding for those programs and services that are priorities for the community. Every year, one of the most important things my city council colleagues and I do is pass the city's annual operating and capital budgets. But we need your help to do it. This is your budget. Your input and feedback as a resident or as a stakeholder truly matters. And when you ask, the city council and I listen. Here are just a few examples of how public input has helped to shape the city's future. You ask for better roads and sidewalks. We listen. More than $70 million will be invested in city streets and sidewalks over the next several years. You told us homelessness was a top issue for you. We responded to your compassion by adding $1.3 million to hire more homeless outreach staff, expand our Tempe Works Jobs program, create a new mental health response unit, enhance park maintenance, and more. And the city has purchased an entire building that now serves as a transitional shelter for those who are homeless, while our specialists work to find them permanent housing. You asked for a more strategic approach to community safety. We are now diverting mental health calls to a crisis center and Care 7, which allows our officers to focus on fighting crime while getting people the expert help they need. We also convened a public safety advisory task force to help continue to build trust, accountability, and dialogue between the community and our police department. You asked for more trees and shade, We listed and allocated more than $2 million for trees over the next several years as part of a comprehensive urban forestry program. These are just a few examples of how the city budget truly works for you. Now it's our turn to do the asking. We invite you to take part of the budget planning process for fiscal year 22-23, which begins July 1st, 2022. We want your feedback, and there are plenty of opportunities to be involved. You can visit tempe.gov/forum to tell us your top priorities for investing in the community. There will also be several public meetings this spring to provide input. To get information about all of this and the city's budget process, please visit tempe.gov/budget plan or call Tempe 311. It's your voice that will help build the future of our great city.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, for the next part of the presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Rosa Anchowski, one of our deputy city managers.
Thank you, Mark, and good afternoon, everyone. As Mark said, my name is Rosa Anchowski, for those who may not know me, Deputy City Manager and resident of this town. I see some familiar folks in the audience, so thank you for joining us, and thank you to everyone for joining us. As the mayor eloquently stated, your opinion and your voice matters to us, and it really is. This team from our budget office, our CFO, is very committed to making sure that we actionize or make your comments actionable and relatable to the council so they understand what the needs are of our community. And that's what I'm going to share with you in the next few slides. So in questioning how community input affects the budget, how your time today is valuable because it is really is information that we share with the council. We start at the end of every fiscal year, we start engaging with the residents again on the next budget cycle. Tom Dunsing shared with you that the forecasting is for many years. Well, the community engagement, we build relationships and we tap into those relationships to make sure that we understand what people would like to see in their city for the coming budget year. So we start with the community survey that's every year. And that is that data is compiled and shared with the mayor and council to make sure that they understand the current pulse on what our people are saying about their community. That data is then shared with them in a meeting, and then we share that back with the community, and that's what we're doing today. Next slide. As has been mentioned, we have 5 council priorities or 5 priorities that we have identified. Safe and secure communities, strong community connections. We all want quality of life, sustainability, growth, and make sure that we have the financial stability to make sure we can afford all the things and amenities and quality of life things that we want in the city of Tempe. Next slide. So for just some examples, if some of you have not seen performance.tempe.gov, we have on a public dashboard all our performance measures. In other words, all the things that we are working towards in our community that are services to all of you. For example, we have fire response times, how we remove graffiti and specific strategies, and tree coverage, the importance of sustainability and making our city walkable and comfortable. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the community survey is something that Tempe has committed to. Not every city does this, but we know that having that initial start of a conversation starts with the survey, that we have longstanding partnership with ETC Institute to run that survey. We get that data back, and what you see before you is really the information distilled into kind of what are the high level priorities or areas that the community would like to see some work in or acceleration in the coming year. Police services, appearance of our city, parks, neighborhoods, conditions of our streets and sidewalks. People would like to see more workforce development and supporting our small businesses, especially in the wake of the last 2 years. And then obviously social and human services. We are not immune to what we see with our unsheltered locally, nationally, and in our state. Next slide. We also, as Mark Day mentioned, we have a business survey that we run biannually. And the results of that survey show that the businesses are very much interested in seeing more fire services as far as prevention making sure that we invest in these areas, emergency medical services, water and sewer, so the essential services, police, streets maintenance, including sidewalks and traffic on, and then addressing the traffic on our city streets. Everyone wants to be in Tempe. Our daytime population increases by about 64%. We're an importer of business, so mitigating traffic is very important to our businesses. Next slide. So one of the in-house tools that we have developed, as you know, there are so many competing priorities in the city or needs of our city. So we created a tool, we call it the START tool, strategic tool for aligning resources in Tempe. And it's a tool that helps the mayor and council take the data that we share with them, and then they are given a theoretical $100, and they individually, based on that data, what they hear from their constituents, identify areas that they would like to see the budget team and strategic management team come back with ideas for accelerating those items. That information gets compiled from all 7. Along with that data, we share with them everything that we're doing in the city, where we are as far as the current status of perhaps fire response times, but more importantly, where was our fire response times in year past? Where are we now, the current, and then where do we want to be? So whether it's in the green or in the red as far as accomplishing those goals. The mayor and council we compile as a staff the results of their theoretical $100. And what you see before you is the results of their tool compilation, or the aggregate of that data. So you can see there, they have identified 13 specific areas that they think is a great response to what the community has said they would like to see in the coming years. I mean, in this coming budget year. So one of the things, just like most of our households, not everything takes money to accelerate. Sometimes it's repurposing things that perhaps are no longer a priority for the city, like say some programs, and they would like us to try new innovative programs. So much like our own personal lives where we allocate things, we identify the top priorities for resources based on the council, resident input, and then we identify if it indeed needs acceleration, by what time can we accelerate this by? Does it need funding, or do we repurpose some of the programs? And that's where Tom Dunsing and Mark Day and their team come into play, because they look at bringing forth to council the additional resources, either through supplemental or CIP funds, to help accelerate those things, to bring basically all of you better quality of life quicker.
Okay, thank you, Rosa, very much. As we mentioned through the presentation, we have a lot of resources available to you about the budget and the budget process. The first one is tempe.gov/budget. There you can find out a lot of information about the budget, the current budget, as well as our planning process for next year, meeting dates, times, locations. We also have developed what we call an open books, where you can go in and look at the city's financial history over several years. It's like our checkbook. So be looking at your own checkbook. You could go in and look at the city's checkbook. You can sort on maybe type of vendor, type of services that were purchased. And that is at tempe.gov/openbooks. We have mentioned a few times this online forum, tempe.gov/forum. So if you haven't gone out there, we encourage you to go out there and take our online survey. And then we've mentioned a few times today about our performance measures. And so we have a portal where you can look to see how we're doing against our performance measure goals. And that is at performance.tempe.gov. And then for the 3 of us today that presented, you're welcome to reach out to us also. Here's our email addresses, as well as our phone numbers. So if you would like to directly contact us, you're more than welcome to do that. And with that, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this slide up, which is our resources. So we'll leave that up. And I am going to now turn it over to Shauna, who's been monitoring the chat to see if there's any questions or comments that we need to read or answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So far, I think I've been answering some of them, but they've been more along the lines of some of what's available in the survey data, as well as just this presentation will be online at tempe.gov/budget plan is where we'll have the majority of information as well as the recording of today's forum. That does take a couple days for us to convert it and place it online, but the presentation will be up today. But so now's the time. If you guys had any questions over the information that was presented or just want to use this time to provide feedback, please feel free. So we do have a question here from David. Within the budget, where things like the train wreck come into play? I understand Tempe got or will get just over 40 grand in compensation. Was looking into the cost, and unless I misread it, the cost was more than 1.3 million. Why did we not get the entire reimbursement?
So Sean, I can answer that if you'd like. Thanks for the question first off. So the train wreck that happened, the cost to Tempe was the $480,000. These were the only costs that we could legally seek reimbursement for. An example that we cannot seek reimbursement for is if I spent time out at the train wreck, the amount that I'm paid is already included in our budget. So I can't seek reimbursement from anybody for things like that. But the amount of incremental expense that we incurred was the $480,000. It was actually slightly less than that. They actually paid us an additional $40,000 for them to just be able to stage their equipment. So that was a very positive outcome. I can tell you the railroad was great working with us on that whole thing. They were more than fair and timely. So I hope I answered your question, David, and I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Joel has his hand raised. Joel, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah. Firstly, I want to thank the city for hosting these forums. With that being said, I'm also here with concerns about the budget. I'm deeply disappointed with how much money the police department keeps receiving. A third of the whole city's budget, usually. That is more than all the other parts of the whole city's budget combined. We Semillas and BLM Phoenix Metro as a coalition have been out there in the streets talking to community members and meeting with members, most of who agree that we must divert funds from the PD to programs and initiatives that can actually benefit our communities and our streets. In my neighborhood, for example, if you take a walk in my neighborhood, you're gonna see more police cars than trees. We need more youth and family programs. The barrios need more trees. Our communities deserve clean water and affordable food for everyone. We don't need more police roaming the streets, making everyone uncomfortable and unsafe. So I really urge folks to revisit the budget process and make it right for the people of our city. And I really look forward to see different numbers this year. And again, thank you for hosting these forums. And I'm Joel, and I'm an organizer with Semillas Arizona.
Thank you, Joel, for sharing your comments.
I have at least one question on process stuff, if that's all right.
Yes, Selena, go ahead.
Cool, thanks. And yes, thank you, Shauna, Tom, Mark, Rosa, for hosting this and for everyone else who showed up. So my first question, the community survey that goes out, as far as I understand, like that one that should be influencing this budget went out like sometime last year, right? So are the results from the community survey and the business survey, are those directly influencing the budget that has been proposed by the departments, or does that input influence the city council's decision on the budget that they're being presented with? Is my first question.
Tom or Mark, would you like me to take that question?
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosa.
Hi, Selena. Thank you for joining and thanks for the question. Process is very important and multiple data points are very important. So yes, I mentioned that we start with an annual community survey that helps inform all of us, not just the mayor and council, but having a better understanding of the landscape of what people are saying in our community. So I don't know if one data point, like we were just talking about COVID relief, not one data point helps to make decisions. I think that's just one data point that is used by staff, us, and also by the mayor and council. We are also working on trying to capture 311 data. There's a lot of people who use the app and trying to basically codify all that data in a way that helps people understand, not just at that one point in time count, but more importantly throughout the year, what people are saying about their community. And that's why these outreaches are so important, because it's not late in the budget cycle. This is exactly what Mark and Tom and all of us want to do. And Shauna is meet people where they are. They were just at the vaccine clinic this past weekend trying to get people to engage, wherever they are on this issue. That data point is also being compiled by the staff and then shared back with the mayor and council. So nothing is done until the end of the budget is adopted.
Okay, cool. So if I'm hearing correctly, that the community and business survey is influencing both the departments in building out their proposal and also the city council in their decision making on the final budget.
I would say
what I'm trying to here, let me give a little bit of background. So there will be community input at these hearings, right, that happen in April, potentially in May. That input is not influencing the department's budget that they propose, right? Because that's already been developed. It's going to be handed over to the city council tomorrow, right? So the community input that happens at the budget hearing, all that's influencing is the city council's decision on the budget, not the development of the budget. So that's why I'm asking, the community survey, is that also influencing the department's development of the proposed budget?
yes, I think
okay.
all of that helps to influence shaping the recommendations, say from Keith Burke in community services, as far as the parks and our pavement quality, but also information that they gather, like data. They create audits of their own departments regarding the performance of those services. And that's also influencing the determination for submitting supplementals, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. So just one last question, and then I know a couple other people have more questions. So the input that the community offers at these hearings, what is the extent? Tell me what is possible for what we will see based on that specific input.
Mark and Tom, would you like to specifically answer?
Sure, I can take that one. Thank you for the question. So when we present tomorrow, for example, on the capital program, that is just what's been proposed by the department. So we're really early in the process. So what's going to be coming forward in March and April are just initial, and what the title will be on each of these, the initial recommended CIP and city manager's initial recommended budget, which would cover both operating and capital. So the council, welcomes feedback, because we can adjust things. We can adjust things up through May. So that's why we have scheduled so many meetings, because we want to hear the feedback. This is what we're initially proposing. Council will say, what do you think of this? And then to the community too, which has an opportunity to respond. What do you think about what we're initially proposing? So things are not set in stone, if you will, at this point at all. we are just working through proposals and asking for feedback on what we are proposing.
And for anyone that is interested in the budget Mark's referencing, I put the link in the chat to the city clerk's office where they post the city council materials, and then you can see kind of what goes into some of the recommendations. Selena, am I okay to go to Sandra? Did that answer your question?
Hola, mi nombre es Sandra Ojeda.
Hola, Sandra.
Me van a traducir.
Hello, my name is Sandra Ojeda.
Soy organizadora en Semillas.
I'm an organizer with Semillas.
Estoy cansada de escuchar que solamente su prioridad es darle los fondos a los policías.
I'm tired of hearing that the city's priority is giving money to the police.
Cuando nuestros jóvenes están en las calles en busca de talleres,
When our youth are in the streets trying to find programs,
en busca de ayuda emocional por la pandemia,
trying to find emotional help because of the pandemic.
tenemos muchos vecinos desamparados.
We have many unsheltered neighbors.
Mi comunidad es sumamente trabajadora y es muy justo que peleemos por nuestros jóvenes, por nuestros futuros jóvenes.
My community it's an extremely hardworking community, and and we must fight for the future of our youth.
Necesitamos que ustedes piensen en qué va a ser de nuestros jóvenes cuando crezcan. Ellos necesitan educación, necesitan información, necesitan talleres donde puedan sacar sus emociones. No necesitamos más policías que nos tengan aterrados todo el tiempo.
She wants the city to think of the future of our youth. We need workshops. We need to have resources. And we don't need more police officers to be terrorizing our communities and our youth.
Es todo.
That's all.
Shauna.
Yes,
Real
Rose.
quickly, I just want to say gracias, Sandra. And Joel, thank you for translating. And the video that Mark showed and Tom at the beginning in Spanish, in English, is also available in Spanish. And I was going to ask to see if Shauna can drop that in the chat in case you would like to share and amplify the opportunities to participate in Spanish. Joel.
Ok, gracias. Están comentando que los videos también están en español y van a compartir el enlace para que puedan verlos.
I will put that in the chat. And the survey online is available in multiple languages. Are there other questions?
¿Alguien más tiene pregunta? I think Juan Miguel is raising his hand.
Yeah, go ahead, Juan.
Sí, hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Juan Miguel, mi primer idioma es español.
Good afternoon, my name is Juan Miguel. My first language is Spanish.
Soy organizador por Semillas Arizona en mi comunidad.
I'm an organizer with Semillas Arizona in my community.
Tengo comentario y a la vez también es una pregunta.
I have a comment and it's also a question.
Sabemos que en Tempe la infraestructura es grandísima. Las construcciones son muy grandes. El trabajo ahorita hay demasiado trabajo.
We know that in Tempe, the infrastructure is really big and there's a lot of construction right now in big buildings.
El problema es de que en el futuro la construcción va a bajar de nivel y los desplazamientos de nuestras familias están siendo una realidad ahora.
The problem is that construction in the future is going to decrease, and the displacement of our families will increase.
¿Qué es lo que va a pasar en el futuro cuando ya no se termine, cuando ya no se pueda hacer más acciones? Nuestras familias totalmente sean expulsadas. Vas a contratar más policías, vas a apostarle más al terror de la policía que a estar con las familias trabajadoras, familias indocumentadas, que lo único que estamos haciendo aquí es tratar de sobrevivir a todo este mundo que está transformando nuestras vidas.
What's going to happen in the future when there's no when a lot of people get displaced? Are you going to hire more officers so that they can terrorize unsheltered communities and communities that are displaced?
¿En dónde se va a poder construir para todas nuestras familias desplazadas? Es todo, gracias.
Where will those displaced families be able to go? That's all. Thank you.
Juan, I can try to take that from a high level, and I may need Rosa's help a little bit. First off, thank you for your question, and Joel, if you don't mind translating that back to Juan, I would appreciate it.
Yes.
The issues that were brought up are prioritized, are our priorities for our council. And what's more important is that you stay involved and that you remain involved in these processes. Go online, maintain contact with the council. They do listen, and it is very important for them to receive this this public input. And Rosa, I don't know if you want to add to that or if I kind of hit it from a high level.
I think you did. Gracias, Juan. Absolutely, you did, Tom. And I would also, I know that the last two speakers have spoken about kind of the funding in one specific department, policing. And I wonder if Shauna would be willing to put in the chat also the Public Safety Advisory Task Force recommendations, because that's also information that the mayor and council is looking at. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosa.
Yes, dicen que gracias por sus preguntas. Dicen que los temas son prioridad para ellos y que les empujan a que o les recomiendan que estén involucrados en el proceso del presupuesto.
And I am finding that website. Ryan, if you want to go ahead. Sorry, the question just popped up, but it's a comment from Selena in the chat. So Ryan, if you want to go ahead.
Great. Yeah, I would also like to echo the what Joel and some of the others have said. We're specifically working with the Apache corridor businesses, and also the La Victoria neighborhood. And there's definitely a need for a greater investment in displacement activities overall, and that includes the businesses and the homeowners, and how home ownership actually happens, and understand how that works, as well as the idea that in the property taxes, some of those owners over there have had their house for quite a long time. It's paid off, and all of a sudden they're surprised with, like, a $5,000 property tax or something like that, and that's not a real number. I'm just giving an example where they say, oh, we're kind of on a fixed income, and that's a really big hit to us, And we're seeing some businesses also that are kind of being where they get a surprise rent raise, because they don't own their buildings. And so some of these businesses have been there for 30 years, that have had some issues. So I would suggest, along with Joel and some of the other folks, that displacement, not just among people, but among business owners as people also, is a very important priority, specifically for areas around light rail and low to moderate income census tracts.
Thanks, Ryan. You articulated that very well. I appreciate that.
So Mark, Selena was asking when the proposed operating budget will be posted. Do you have the date for that? It'll be on that same budget plan, right? Or
It will. I apologize, I don't have the meeting date. I can go back in the slide deck here. I believe it's April 24th, but let me look here. April 21st. So that will be posted on the clerk's site a few days before that session.
and she's asking if that's when the council sees it for the first time? Is that your first recommended for operating?
That is the first recommended for operating. That is correct. And then, as you can see, we have follow-up meetings. So if there's a lot of discussion or feedback, we can obviously continue the discussion after the 7th. The actual formal adoption, it doesn't begin until you see the tentative adoption on May 26th.
And again, as Mark mentioned, all of those include a public comment component for all of them. And those materials are usually posted the Friday prior to those meetings at the same website we put in the chat.
That's just kind of confusing to me. So the city council does not have any time, like they only have a couple days to review the budget as it's being proposed before they have to have a hearing about it. In other words, the city council is not getting the proposed budget anytime this month or next month. They're not going to see it.
So for the capital budget, their first look at that will be tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And that'll be the proposed. And then for the operating side, that is correct. So we've already reviewed the capital with them, and then we'll start on the operating side in April. So they'll receive the material, and then they have about a week to look it over. Obviously, they if they have questions, they'll reach out, and if they need clarifications, and then we'll discuss it publicly on April 21st.
And Mark, maybe you want to speak to some of the pre-work that the mayor and council do with, I think Rosa touched a little bit on the START tool and some of the performance measures where their input is influencing what that budget looks like.
Yeah, so as Rosa mentioned, so we actually, it's not, I guess we show up on the 21st and it's, here's everything, at one fell swoop. We asked their input way back in December. We say, with that START tool, tell us what you are envisioning, what the priorities are for this upcoming budget. And they, which was on the slide, they had listed 13 areas that they think are priorities with the community, with our residents and business owners. And they want us to come back in March and April. If it's CIP, it'd be March, and operating in April, with how are you going to address those 13 priorities? What are you proposing to address those 13 focus areas, hyper focus areas? So that will be part of the presentation too. So they've provided us with their initial input based on that START tool they took, and that's influenced obviously by the community survey and things that they are hearing, but also when the community through this process will provide that feedback to them. So for example, all the online forum results are presented to them in March, so they have plenty of time to digest what the community is saying before we even have our initial presentation of the operating budget in April.
Okay, there was a question from Rosa.
Hola, mi nombre es Rosa, solamente hablo español. Joel me va a traducir.
Hello, my name is Rosa. I only speak Spanish, and Joel is going to translate me.
Yo soy organizadora en Semillas también, y lo que yo quiero decir es que está muy bien todo lo que ustedes están diciendo a futuro y los programas que tienen en existencia.
I want to say that I'm also an organizer with Semillas, and it's really good those programs that are planned in the future.
Pero hemos estado en algunos parques ahí en Tempe y hay unos que, por ejemplo, el Parque Square, que está en la calle Arthur, en el East, ese parque en especial no tiene baños. Vamos familias que tenemos niños pequeños y cuando ellos, sus necesidades se vienen de repente, son pequeños, ¿a dónde tenemos que correr? A nuestra casa. Entonces ya necesitamos toda esa clase de oportunidades también nosotros. Si vamos a un parque donde no existe tantas personas de color.
So she's saying that we've been to some parks. We're talking about the park that is in the Escort Park, which is in La Victoria, where there's no bathrooms. And it's a pattern that we see in parks that are mostly in communities of color.
Si vamos a esos parques, tienen todo lo necesario, todos los servicios. Nosotros también tenemos el derecho y necesitamos tener todos los servicios que necesitamos en nuestros barrios. Ese día tampoco había agua. No quiero pensar que hoy en el verano, que es tan caliente, no vayamos a tener esos servicios también.
When we go to more richer neighborhoods, they have those services, they have bathrooms, they have water. Some of the things we also saw in those parks, like in Escort Park, the water was cut off. And I don't want to think that you're gonna be cutting off the water on the parks throughout summer, because water is very important, especially that we're in the desert and summer is coming up. And we also serve those services.
Necesitamos que tengan en mente todas esas situaciones porque somos humanos y todos necesitamos los servicios. Eso es todo. Muchas gracias.
Yeah, and you must have in mind those situations, because we all need those services and we're all human, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa. Thank you all for translating that for us.
Okay, thank you. And then Jewel put in the chat that we need water fountains too in the parks. If you guys let us know which parks, we're also happy to pass that along. There's a comprehensive capital investment in the parks. So if there are any without water fountains or even ones that aren't working, please do let us know and we can follow up on that. So we are, go ahead, Mark.
I could also comment, please. Thank you, Rosa, for your comments and feedback. I will say that the parks area has undertaken a project where they're looking at all the capital improvements through the parks and overlaying that with a equity and inclusion map to make sure that the investments we have in the parks are they are equitable throughout the city. So I do appreciate your feedback, and we'll definitely also pass that on to community services.
Okay, so we are coming up at the end of our hour, but Jewel, yes, please, you are able to unmute yourself. So if you had a comment or question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, my name is Joe Valenzuela. I'm a public school teacher. I'm also a community member, Tempe. So on 5th Street, also our park needs water fountains also. And whenever I go there, we have to make sure that we take water. Another thing too is we also have the Boys and Girls Club that is right up the street at the park there on 5th Street. And it's in between like Priest and Mill. And so what happened is even before COVID, we had a workout room that was free to any of the community members that's there. And what happened is they closed it down, and they also took over that room where we used to work out. We don't even know what happened to all the equipment, but it was free. You just signed up. They got your information. And now that area is filled with, when I walked in there probably like 6 months ago to find out what was going on with the area and if we would be able to still work out, there was a policeman that greeted me in the Boys and Girls Club at the door, which I thought the Boys and Girls employees would greet me first, but they didn't. It was the police officer, and he said that, and I said, can we work out still? And he said, no, we have that room. So I just went by there this morning before I came to work, and I looked in the room. There's a sofa in there, there's a television in there, there's a desk, there's a flat screen TV. Don't they have enough space at the police station to do all that and watch flat screens and do all that over there? Why do they have to be in our Boys and Girls Club and they're the first people that we greet when we walk in there? Why can't it be the Boys and Girls employees like it was before, years ago? And then not only that, it makes me feel threatened too when I do take my grandchildren there and there's a police officer and he's on a motorcycle and he has that AK, that big gun. Why can't we just have at our parks, why can't we just have security? What's wrong with maybe just security that makes sure that, you know, everything is okay? Why do I have to walk into the Boys and Girls Club LADMO thing and they're the ones that greet me? This is supposed to be more of a community place, more where our elders go, that there's other things for them to do there too. And another thing too is in the other neighborhood that's on Ash and like Farmer, right in that area off of University. They're doing a thing now that's called block flow traffic. Instead of putting more speed bumps, they're blocking off streets to make the flow of traffic go in another direction. And so my daughter lives over in that other neighborhood and she teaches for Chandler High School. And she said that it's just creating more of a problem because it doesn't make people slow down. It's just making it harder because now you have some of these roads blocked and people are just moving the signs and going anyways. And she said that it would be helpful if there was more like street, maybe more speed bumps and maybe even a street light instead of just trying to put up a couple of barricades that get moved around here and there. And it's not even like anyone's working on the street. It's just to stop flow of traffic. And so I feel like in this budget that there's a lot of things. I also donate a lot of my time and my own money to help with murals in the Guadalupe community because I am Yoeme Yaqui and I do that on my own spare time. I do my own art. I do this to help, and even though it's in Guadalupe, it's still in our Tempe area and a lot of people pass through Guadalupe to get through the other parts of Tempe. And so I teach children out of my pocket too. And so I felt that there's a lot that can be done in our community to help our younger youth, especially like in our neighborhood and also in the Victoria neighborhood with the other parks and that. And again, the water fountains, the bathrooms, all that makes it all necessary. I know that that local artist gets funded. I haven't put in for that with Tempe, but I also like to do a lot of grassroots on my own just to help. So I just wanted to add that as far as considering for the budgeting. And I will go I will go around to these parks and look a little bit better and make some more notes on that. Thank you. That I just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Jewel. Thanks for being a teacher as well, by the way.
Okay. I have to go now though, because I have to get back to work. Okay, thank you. Bye.
All right, thank you, Jill, for your comments. And for everyone's benefit, as well as Jules, we'll follow up on our West Side Multi-Gen Center that we share with our Boys and Girls Club about. I know a lot of the community centers had workout rooms for residents' use, so we can find out if, if they are going to have that again. Mark and Tom, did you have any other information you wanted to share before we wrap up?
I will just display the resources again. So we try to put everything that we can out there. So I will say that, but I just want to say I really appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to be part of this process. Your feedback is very valuable to the council as well as to staff. So we will definitely take this information and provide it to council before they begin their discussions on the capital and operating budgets.
Thank you from me as well. And it was nice seeing you all.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.